Hello, my beautiful fellow sparkly space blobs, as well as my friends. It is feeling so good to sit down here with you today because we get to talk about one of my favorite things of every single year, which is the Sagittarius Full Moon. This one is happening around June 4th. And for those of you who have been with me for a little while, you know I have very strong feelings about the Sagittarius energy and this particular full moon. I have a really deep love of Sagittarian energy. It has been a thread that has pulled me through so much in life and has brought me back to life in so many different ways through deep friendships with Sagittarian energy, through my own Sagittarius rising, and also just every time I connect with this archetype, something really beautiful wakes up in me. So I am already admitting I have a very strong bias toward Sagittarian energy. It is just one of my favorite energies. And every year, the Sagittarius full moon just comes in with this big illumination and I feel like gives me some of the best information about myself anywhere. Because if you know anything about Sagittarius energy, you might have heard that it can be honest and to the point and just speak its mind, which is part of what is so refreshing about it. But the other core of Sagittarian energy, right, is this hopefulness, this ability to see things from a perspective of the larger process, to zoom out a little bit, to get out of our day-to-day, to get out of our heads and get a little bit more into the larger arcs of our lives, the larger weavings of our lives, the larger ways that we move through things, to give ourselves credit for how we've moved through them, and also to possibly rekindle hope in our path moving forward, in really honoring who we truly are. The other core element of this Sagittarius full moon is what I like to call compassionate honesty, which can really illuminate where we are holding ourselves back or where we are holding ourselves in shapes that just don't work. I remember many years ago, I had a crush on a Sagittarius actually, who I was just convinced, like, we got to go do this thing in life together, right? And I remember this full moon came around, it was in early June, and it was just like, no. That's not your person. There's other things for you to do. And it was super blunt and in my face. I got the strongest intuitive download of it. I didn't really listen to it. It took me several more months to be like, oh, okay. But it was just this clarity of like, yeah, that relationship and that path isn't holding me anymore. So that's one part of it. But it's also really about illuminating our beacon lights, the places in ourselves that we feel are maybe problematic, unworthy, we're not allowed to bring to the table, maybe are the parts of ourselves that we've learned to push down or repress, and learning that those places in ourselves that we think of as shameful or strange or unlovable are often places that actually are the fuel to light our beacon light, that allow us to connect to kindred spirits, that allow us to connect to our truer paths. And I think this full moon illuminates not only the shapes that we no longer need to hold on to, no longer need to cling onto and strive for and try to expand into, right? And force ourselves to expand into, but it also illuminates the part of ourselves that we can work with, that are very powerful and very potent, and in fact, undergird our entire path, except that we've been told so many times through culture, through situations that we're not allowed to work with or utilize these aspects of ourselves, despite the fact that we're all hungry to connect with others that are true to themselves and that are allowing themselves to be who they are, right? You know what it feels like when you are in a space with somebody who has accepted who they are to some extent and lives through that. That energy is so magnetic and we want to be around it and we're intrigued by it because it feels so refreshing and liberating. And that brings me to the big aspects going on for this full moon. And get ready for it because all three fire signs are getting lit up during this full moon. So of course we have the Sagitt moon in Sagittarius, but it is loosely trining Lilith in Leo and Chiron in Aries. Just some light energy, Chiron and Lilith. I personally love working with these energies. It feels like home to me, but these are really, really powerful trines. And what they speak to is liberation and healing. Lilith is really connected for me. Every time I think about Lilith, every time I work with Lilith, especially in the sign of Leo, which is about self-expression and creativity and letting things flow from the heart center, It's liberating the parts of ourselves we have been trying to disempower or push down in order to fit into a box or to keep ourselves safe. It is really powerful stuff, right? And that's like a lifelong journey, and it goes really deep. It can take us to really powerful places. But I think in this optimistic full moon with Sagittarius, with its warmth, with its optimism, with its hope for what we can become if we are willing to be brave enough to connect with ourselves, it is really this vibrant, honest acknowledgement of who we really are. And for me, you know, when I think about connecting to my most optimistic path, the path that feels truest for me, it really doesn't look like what we've been sold as the optimistic path, you know, which is like, I don't know, traveling around the world and staying in like luxury villas and having like excess wealth and I don't know, being like really skinny and like tan or something. I don't know, you know, whatever it is, like all the commercials we've been fed, all the life paths that we've been fed, climb up the social ladder, climb up the corporate ladder, you know, hit these milestones in your life, whatever that is, we can toss all of that out the window. Because when it comes to having that compassionate optimism and connecting with our true paths, burnishing our beacon light, letting it shine bright, it is going to look so unique to each one of us. For some of us, burnishing our beacon light is going to be literally just staying at home on a Saturday night and getting to talk out loud to ourselves. You know, I'm not saying that that is me, but it might be me. You know, it's like every single one of us is going to burnish our beacon light in a really powerful, potent, unique way. And it's about liberating the parts of ourselves that we felt could not be part of the narrative before. Even if we let ourselves have it in private or in the hidden, there still might be a part of ourselves that would cut it out of the story, right? When we would tell that master story, when we would tell that master narrative. So it's really about like liberating those aspects of ourselves, liberating these beautiful, beautiful aspects of ourselves that allow us to burnish our beacon light, that allow us to connect with kindred spirits, that allow us to connect with our path and who we're really becoming and where we're going. But it's not going to include just self-improvement, trying to like heal all the parts of ourselves. It's really going to be this kind of, like I keep saying, compassionate optimism about all these parts of ourselves that have been pushed down. And that applies both in the Chiron area of our, you know, the places that we think of as weaknesses, problems, embarrassments, as well as the Lilith area, which is the almost angry, rebellious part of ourselves that has wanted to rip down injustice and old walls and old containers that are hurting the world as well as individuals. Both of these energies are just really, really powerful. And I think that's just so beautiful. So this full moon has a lot to work with here. And I'm going to be doing an activation over on Patreon. If you are looking for a little bit of help with this, we're going to be doing a whole bunch of prompts. It's going to walk us through where we may have been pushing ourselves down, where we feel that creative, fiery, rebellious, free, loving spirit has maybe not had spaces to shine, how we access that again, how we can really see it, and then work with it and let it show us where it's trying to take us. So I would love to see you over on Patreon. And I also want to mention really quickly before we get to the cards that we are still in the middle of Weaves, Webs, and Wending. We have a couple more weeks. It's going to wrap up right around this full moon. And that will still be available even if you aren't there for the 4 weeks that it's running. It will still be on my Patreon. So if you want to sign up anytime in June, you can access an entire creativity series that helps you access your inner wild spirit and work with who you are. Not just who you think you need to be, but who you are, and really do it in practical, beautiful ways. So I'd love to see you over there. If you have not checked out my Patreon, I highly recommend it, not to like pat myself on the back, but it's a special space. And I've worked really hard to make it a space that I feel really aligns with who I am and who I think my fellow kindred spirits are. So I'd love to see you there. But let's get back to these cards. They just like fell out of the middle of the deck. 4 of them, in fact. Wow. Okay. Fun. 10 of Pentacles. Good old long road, big vision energy. 2 of Cups. Very romantic. A Knight of Cups. Super optimistic. Truth, love, and beauty. Poetry. romantic energy. And then, of course, our good old friend, the Nine of Swords, loves to show up. Very important card. Shows up whenever we are growing and expanding. Shows up every time we are challenging old narratives. Shows up every time we are shedding an old exoskeleton or accessing parts of ourselves that we have been convinced for a lot of our lives will be the thing that will destroy us. Very important marker of important things going on. So let's talk about this because I love it. I love it. Like I said, I'm in a really good mood because I just love Sagittarian energy. I've been missing it. We haven't been having so much of it in the general feeling of the world. We've been working with other energies. So when I get a chance to be here, I'm happy. Okay. 10 of Pentacles. Big vision, right? 10 of Pentacles is about what we build over a lifetime, over a whole season of life. So this card serves two functions. One is to acknowledge what we've already built. Think about all the things you have moved through in this life. Give yourself credit for them. Understand them. Really give yourself the sight. This is part of burnishing your beacon light that is so important when working with Sagittarian energy. We have to acknowledge all the amazing things we have moved through. And I can attest when I read some of the comments that people share of their stories here, you all, oh my gosh, the things that you have moved through, the things that you have learned, the insights that you have gained, they blow my mind. Like, they are so powerful. I'm just like, look at what you've done. You know, that's already so much. So feeding into the wealth of that. 10 of Pentacles, though, is also about the road ahead. And this is where that expansive, wide angle view that Sagittarian energy brings is so important, because the road ahead needs to be your own. It needs to be built from bricks that really come from your heart center and not from what you think it needs to be. And this is a long road of discernment that we go throughout our whole lives, right? Figuring out what those bricks should be made of, figuring out how we want to pave that road. But this is a really opportune moment to think about what those bricks are. What you want your foundational core things that you value about yourself and your life to be that builds the road ahead. And I'm really curious to see what comes up for all of us. And then we get right into very romantic energy. Let's call it what it is. This is super romantic energy. And I think for me, romance is so much more than just connecting with a person we got a little crush on, though maybe some of you will be experiencing that. This is like the crush that I have on life and that life has on me. In fact, that's what it makes me think of. When I really need inspiration, I will remind myself that life has a crush on me. It really wants me to go explore and do things. And I have a crush on aspects of life. And so when I feel that feeling, I get really creatively inspired. These are dreaming energies. Of course, 2 of Cups is very reciprocal. It's a very balanced energy that is very much about what pours into your cup, you pour into their cup, and there being that nice reciprocity, which should be in our relationships, but can also just be in our connection to our creative spirit and to the world, right? A balancing of that reciprocity and understanding that life has a crush on you. And you might have a crush on certain aspects of life with a capital L. And the truth, love, and poetry of the Knight of Cups, this energy comes in just offering creative ideas, creative expression without worrying how it's going to work out, how we're going to land on our feet. And sometimes we just need a little bit of that optimistic daydreaming. And that is an aspect of Sagittarius as well. There's like 2 sides of Sagittarius. One is that really blunt, brutal honesty that's like, well, just get it together. The other side of Sagittarius is, let's see what happens. And I think that's actually a really, really important part of this full moon. It's important that we spend time here in the let's see what happens without worrying about the judgment, the shame, how we're going to be castigated for our whole lives. Just taking a moment to be in our own special energy and letting that be the creative juice behind everything. And of course, we have our dear friend Nine of Swords, as I mentioned. This card comes up when we are moving into new shapes and new forms and new paths. And actually this card comes up when we are getting closer to our true selves. When we are shedding the cultural conditioning, when we are shedding the cultural expectations, when we are shedding all those heavy layers, that we've just been carrying around. Like, they're not who we are. They're not our actual identities, but we've been lugging that stuff around, right? And as we keep living life, a lot of us start to take off layer after layer. And when we do, there's a vulnerability. There's a sense of being exposed. There's a sense that what will happen when I don't have that layer on? What will happen when I just let myself be at peace with an aspect of myself? And I think it's so natural to just visit that haunted house of fears and to feel some emotions moving through you. And that might also happen as well. You might have a really big emotional release around all that weight you have been carrying, that wouldn't let you dream, that wouldn't let you build the bricks that mean something for you in your life. And that's really powerful and really beautiful. It's going to make me cry. Because I just know so many of us, you know, myself included, and I know so many of you out there have been feeling like you had to make these like uniform bricks that just felt like nothing, you know, and wear all these costumes and do all of that. And there's so much grace and release in just not having to carry that around anymore. So I love this card actually, because it always denotes to me there's something really powerful going on in the shift in our lives. So you're allowed to dream and be a little optimistic during this full moon. And you're allowed to feel a little rebellious against the old containers that were holding you. And you're allowed to advocate for the parts of yourself that have felt embarrassing or like liabilities in the past, because this is really at its core about burnishing our mirrors and lighting up our beacon lights and letting ourselves shine in that special way. And just starting with doing that with ourselves and allowing that flame to grow and brighten every day. So I'm just feeling this energy so much. I love it. And I love you all so much. Thank you for being here. I've been finding my love of this work again through being really honest with myself. If you haven't watched a couple of my most recent, like little intimate chats just about life and things I've been learning, I would highly recommend checking those out. But it's really helped me step into what I love about doing this work with astrology, with tarot, with the exploration of soul and path. And it's been feeling really good to get back into that space and let my beacon light come back to life after a little season of feeling a bit dimmer and working out some things. So thank you for being here. Every time you like, subscribe, and comment, it really does help my work get a chance to be seen. So I appreciate that every single time. It's so amazing. And I mentioned Patreon already, but it really is a great space. It allows me to keep doing this work. And I just love offering those spaces and those conversations to you over there. So I'd really love to see you there for weaves, webs, and wending, that creativity exploration, as well as the activation for this full moon, where we're going to help ourselves sort through how to get our true spirits lit up. And of course, you can find me on Instagram or on my website, so I'll leave all of that in the description, knowing where to find me. I love you all so much. Stick around because we are heading very swiftly into Cancer season and some new energies coming up. It's going to be a really interesting summer with node changes, a Venus retrograde. We've got some stuff to talk about, so I'm really looking forward to chatting soon. Have a beautiful full moon in Sagittarius, my friends. I love you.